In this episode, I talk about some of the biggest mistakes that creatives keep making. Welcome to episode 94 of the Honest Entrepreneur Show, where I help creatives like you to master your marketing. My name's Tom Ross, and let's get into the show. So, fun fact of the day, for the second time yesterday, I was recording my other podcast, the Honest Designers Show. I tend to have the air conditioning off, and it hit me again. It got up to 41 degrees Celsius. I think it was about 105 Fahrenheit for all you Americans out there. And I just felt so bizarre afterwards. I had to lie down out back in the dark with a glass of water, thinking I was going to pass out. So for all you podcasters out there, get that air conditioning on. As Marco pointed out to me, it's better to have slightly worse audio quality, but be alive.
This question is from Isabella. What are some of the lesser known marketing mistakes that creatives should avoid?
Hey Isabella, that's not necessarily an easy question to answer. I like it, you put me on the spot, but I'm going to give it my best shot. So the lesser known mistakes, I feel like there's a bunch of very obvious mistakes. Lesser known mistakes, I think a very common one, but something that a lot of people don't realize they're doing, is just a lack of clear focus in what their value offering is. And I've had a few calls this week trying to help people with this stuff, and it is crazy to me. I will land on their website and it won't tell me why I'm meant to be there. It won't tell me what they can do for me. And then I go on their blog and there's 20 different articles about 20 completely different things. And then none of them really funnel or link to their premium offering, which is completely unrelated. Again, like the whole thing just feels very muddy. And so, yeah, muddiness would be one of the most common, but kind of unrecognized mistakes that creators make, and they just don't even realize they're doing it. And I think I genuinely might do a course about this in the future because it's such a big thing and it helps so much when you get it right. But the perfect formula for me in that instance would be decide what audience you're serving and what value you want to bring them. Are you teaching, I don't know, like complete beginners how to do hand lettering, for example? Then decide your premium offering at the top. And it's like, okay, so you might release a course which is going to condense down everything for beginners to learn hand lettering. You've got a niche. It's not anyone doing hand lettering. It is complete beginners. So you're going to handhold them and make it super easy and take them every step of the way. And then below that, just every bit of content you put out should be about hand lettering for beginners. It should be, the first pen you buy and why. It should be how to affordably get set up with all the right equipment to get you started. It should be the top 5 drills to do to improve your lettering. It should be the top 10 mistakes that letterers make when they're first starting out and how to sidestep them. It should be how to condense 2 years worth of lettering progress into 3 months by doing this strategy. It should be all that kind of stuff. And suddenly anyone who hits your site is like, wow, I'm a beginner letterer. This is perfect for me. And they're going to pour through every article they can lay their hands on if it's really valuable content. That's going to then kind of funnel them towards buying the premium course for some people. Google is going to start loving it because when people are saying, how do I start out lettering, your articles are going to show up. So I've gone on like a bit of a mini course tangent there. And kind of given the answer to that particular problem, but muddiness would be one. Imposter syndrome is obviously like very common, but also quite talked about. What else have I got, Isabella? Like I say, you put me on the spot here. I would say overthinking about stuff that they shouldn't be thinking about as well. Like the number of creatives that get hung up on bullshit, essentially, where they are literally getting tied down into stuff to do with accountancy that they actually don't really need to worry about, or they're like really overthinking some innocuous thing on social media that doesn't make a blind bit of difference. So muddiness, overthinking like just menial crap that they shouldn't be worrying about. What else do I see? I think maybe being too private and like hoarding everything and not immersing themselves in the community. So not being as willing to share, perhaps, thinking other people are like land grabbing or out to get them, and not having that abundance mindset, having a scarcity mindset, which can be very dangerous. What else? I think issues around perhaps confidence in terms of putting themselves out there. And I don't just mean imposter syndrome. I mean literally, like, for many creatives, they are terrified at the thought of doing a show like this, a podcast or a video show. So taking the plunge there, and kind of holding back from doing that because of their own insecurities, I would say that is a very common mistake as well, but perhaps not talked about enough. There's a ton. There really are a ton. Like I say, most of them are actually a little more obvious and a little more talked about, but just so common. We've got imposter syndrome. We've got pricing yourself too low. We have got being being afraid to take that next step and release that course, like put out that blog post, put out that video show. Niching, there seems to be a real resistance around that. Again, that scarcity mindset. So people are like, but if I serve that specific group of people, then it's really going to limit me in the future. Whereas it's the complete opposite. And people really seem to struggle to wrap their head around that. Like the example I gave, teaching lettering to complete beginners, tons of creatives would actually misconstrue that as something that was not a viable niche and was far too limited. And yet in the meantime, they're just putting out fluffy kind of generic posts around lettering for anyone, and wondering why they're getting no traction. I think for entrepreneurs and content creators in general, but especially creatives, not delivering enough value and substance in their content. So essentially getting lost in that sea of noise, just putting out a post and kind of feeling both insecure and entitled at the same time. And to break that down, what I mean is often people they put out a piece of content and then they think like, oh man, this deserves to do better, or why aren't I doing better? Why aren't I getting more following? And all of this kind of victim mentality. But if you really objectively look at it, it's like, because the content's very average, it's not really bringing value to anyone. It's nothing special. It'll be like some hand-edited quote being like, sunshine or something like that. It's like, great, there's 5 billion of those on Instagram. Why would anyone care about yours? And so this kind of victim mentality, entitlement of like, but I do deserve more. But at the same time, that's kind of wrapped around like a deeper insecurity where actually at their core, they kind of deeply know they don't deserve more. So this weird imbalance there, I think that's a very common mistake, and that holds people back. And yeah, just to expand upon the victim mentality, that in general, that's such a losing mentality where it's like, why aren't I doing better? I deserve to do better. And over there, they're doing better than I am. Like, that stuff sucks. So it's like, rather than that, just figure out like, how can I be better? Like, how can I listen to my audience more? How can I focus down more and niche down more? And how can I produce better content? And how can I make my content more share worthy? And how can I solve a real problem? And how can I go consume courses and content like this to level up my marketing? And how can I just move forward and move forward and move forward? And it's just so many creatives sit and dwell about like what they don't have and what's going wrong. And I'm saying this from a place of tough love, because I love creatives. I love this community, but it does get a bit exhausting to see the same mindset mistakes over and over and over again. So that would be my rant and my answer. Question of the day: what is the biggest mistake that you see creatives making? Thank you so much for watching this episode. I appreciate you guys so much. I'm really enjoying the YouTube show. If you are too, then be sure to hit the subscribe icon and tick the little bell to get notifications when I post new content on this platform.